Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Glendale City Council meeting for September 14th, 2021, being called to order at 6:05 p.m. To help slow the transmission of COVID-19 and protect the health and safety of the community, City Council, as well as all board and commission meetings, will continue to be closed to the public for in-person attendance. The public is encouraged to watch and participate from the safety of their homes to practice social distancing. Meetings are broadcast live on Glendale TV, viewable on Spectrum Cable, Channel 6, and AT&T UVerse Channel 99. Meetings are also streamed live in high definition on the city's webpage, glendalega.gov/live, on youtube.com/myglendale, and on Apple TV, Roku, and Amazon Fire devices using a free app called ScreenWeave, and where you must choose the Glendale TV option from the menu. For public comments and questions during this meeting, call 818-937-8100. Public comments on a specific agenda item will be taken when that agenda item is discussed. Thank you with that, and with that, let us please have the roll call.
Councilmember Agajanian.
Present.
Brotman.
Here.
Kasakian.
Here.
Najarian.
Here.
And Mayor Devine.
So with that, before we continue on with items on this agenda, you may have noticed the absence of our mayor from this dais, and it is with great sadness that we inform you of the passing of a longtime Glendale commissioner, our dear mayor's husband and devoted community member, Art Devine. His contributions to the city of Glendale have made our community stronger, and it is where his legacy will last a very long time. Arthur Charles Devine was born in Los Angeles, graduated from UC Berkeley with a Bachelor's of Science degree in Civil Engineering, and received a Master of Public Administration from the University of Southern California. He was a state-licensed civil, structural, and fire protection engineer, and during his 36-year career with the City of Los Angeles Department of Building and Safety, he held various positions, including Chief of Earthquake Safety Division, Chief of Inspection Bureau, and Executive Officer. During this time, he met and married Paula, the love of his life, and they shared a beautiful life together. Since his retirement in 1997, Art volunteered in various places with the goal of giving back to the community. Given his love of animals, Art volunteered at the Wildlife Way Station. He also volunteered as an arbitrator for the Better Business Bureau, served as an ombudsman at CBS Television, and chaired the City of Los Angeles United Way campaign. He was a member of the Glendale Fire Foundation, as well as the Glendale Police Foundation, where he received the first Volunteer of the Year award for his services. Art continued his volunteer work serving the Glendale community on various boards and commissions. He served on the Glendale Board of Zoning Appeals, the Glendale Building and Fire Board of Appeals, and the Civil Service Commission, on which he served for 12 years. Art said that he continued his volunteer work for so many years because there's nothing more rewarding and gratifying than knowing you are helping people and making a difference by giving your time and resource without wanting, expecting, or receiving anything in return. Aside from spending time volunteering, Art and Paula traveled extensively to all corners of the world, spanning almost every continent. Their travels took them from Kathmandu to Bali, from Shanghai to Rwanda, from Korea to Armenia, and everywhere in between. Art, alongside his partner, our Mayor Paula, was a fixture in the Glendale community, dedicated to improving the quality of life for everyone. Art loved Paula very much and was her rock, supporting her through all her volunteer efforts, as well as her successful campaign to serve on the Glendale City Council, where she is now still serving as mayor. He left an indelible mark on Glendale and will be greatly missed. And as we mourn the loss of Art Devine, we extend to his wife, our Mayor Paula Devine, and his family our sincere sympathy. And please, we ask that you keep our mayor and Art's family in your thoughts and prayers. In addition to that, the mayor just wanted to share how honored Art would be with all of the outpouring of support from everyone. And she asked me to thank everyone for their kind words of condolences, flowers, texts, emails, calls. She says, it warms my heart to know he was loved and respected by this community. I'll personally say that I knew Art for many years, and, you know, you wouldn't see Paula and Art separate from each other. They were always together unless one of them was serving up here on the dais in their volunteer capacity on a commission or a board. But everywhere else in the community, they were by each other's side. He was a true gentleman, and he really will be missed. It's going to be a very heavy loss for this community. So we would ask to have this evening's meeting adjourned in memory of former city commissioner and the husband of our mayor, Paula Devine, Art Devine. My colleagues would like to say a few words. Anyone? Mr. Brotman?
Thank you. Yes, I think it came as a shock to all of us when we heard about Art's passing. I didn't myself know Art all that well, but I did have some really meaningful interactions with him over I'd say the last 3 or 4 years. And in particular, when it came to the issue of the Grayson power plant before I was on council, we met, and he pushed me pretty hard. He asked me a lot of tough questions. He made me really rethink a lot of things. He was a very deep thinker. He's a very critical thinker, but presented critiques in a way that made you feel like he was on your side and trying to get you to the best possible place. So he really was a gentleman, and I just can't imagine what Paula, our mayor, is going through. It's a terrible loss, and it's really a terrible loss for all of us. So may he rest in peace. He will be missed.
Thank you. Councilmember Najarian?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem. First, to Paula, if you're listening, my family's deep condolences to you. I know that you and Art made such a great team, but you're also very good individually, each one in your own roles. And I remember Art serving on the Civil Service Commission, where at times I thought he was the only one on there with half a brain. And he brought a certain sense of engineering logic, if you will, and community history to his decisions and his discussions. And I missed him this past year during the whole COVID. I missed speaking to him, and he would always pull me aside, and he would either say, good job, I like the way you discussed such and such issue, or you forgot about this point when you were talking about that issue. Always, though, in the most professional and kind way. And I'm really going to miss Art. And Paula, we're here for you if you need any help as the council as a whole, and also individually, I think, from all of us. So God rest in peace, Art.
Councilmember Agajanian?
Yes. 5 years ago, when I got elected, one of the very first people who called me after the results were out, he called me, and me, Art, and Paula, we went for breakfast. And consequently, of course, I knew Art for a long time because he was resident of Glendale, and I was living in Glendale for such a long time. But however, we went out, and after that, we were friends. We were going out for dinner and breakfast again a few times. And he was a kind person, as has been mentioned here. He was a professional engineer, a PE engineer, and that's why apparently me and him, we could understand each other. Two professional engineers, probably we could understand each other better. However, he was a kind person. May he rest in peace, and God bless his soul, and my condolences to Paula and the family. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Agajanian, and all my colleagues for your comments. Again, Mayor Devine, Paula, if you are watching, our thoughts and our prayers are with you. I think one of my favorite sayings in life is one that comes from Jackie Robinson, who said that a life is only as important as the impact it has on the lives of others. And you can be certain that Art's life was very important to many people in Glendale and the impact it has had through his service and through all the good that you guys together did. And I'm sure you will continue to do in continuing his legacy. He is gone too soon. May he rest in peace. With that, let us please rise for the flag salute, followed by the invocation, which will be led by the clerk, Ahmad Jamin. Place your right hand over your heart and begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice. Please remain standing.
Heavenly Father, we thank you this evening for the continued blessings on our community and its citizens. Father, we ask that you grant our council wisdom as they make decisions that will shape the future of this great city. Let them move forward in the spirit of cooperation and dedication in order to achieve the goals that have been set for the community. Finally, we ask that you guide us in our daily lives, that we may conduct ourselves in a manner that will be pleasing to you. In your name we pray, amen.
Amen. Thank you. So, moving on with the agenda, please let us have your report.
The agenda for the September 14, 2021 regular meeting of the Glendale City Council was posted on September 7th, 2021 on the bulletin board outside City Hall.
Thank you. And the next item under presentation and appointments.
3A is agenda preview for the meeting of Tuesday, September 21st, 2021 by John Tuktalian.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem Kasaki and members of the City Council. Next week's meetings will begin in the afternoon with our Housing Authority with one item on their agenda. That'll be regarding the Second Amendment to a servicing agreement between the Housing Authority of the City of Glendale and Heritage Housing Partners. Also in the afternoon, we'll have a joint meeting of the City Council and the Housing Authority with one item on that agenda, and that'll be a public hearing associated with the Tax Equity and Fiscal Responsibility Act for California Municipal Finance Authority's proposed issuance of approximately $150 million in tax-exempt revenue bonds in support of several continuing care retirement facilities throughout California, of which an amount not to exceed $25 million will be used for Windsor Manor, which is a continuing care retirement facility in Glendale, owned and operated by Human Good. That evening for the City Council, we have 4 items under consent. At 4A is a report from Water and Power regarding an amendment number 2 to professional services agreement with Clean Power Consulting Partners, followed by another report from the same department for a summary vacation of an electrical easement at properties located at 608, 612, and 620 West Elk Avenue, as well as one at 605 Vine Street. At 4C will be a report from Community Services and Parks regarding the life cycle analysis and triple bottom line analysis of artificial turf and natural turf. And finally, a report from Public Works regarding a contract award for tenant improvements at the Glendale Police Department's Crime Lab. Under action items, we'll have a report from Water and Power regarding adoption of specifications for the proposed Grayson repowering project, as well as a request for proposal for the demolition and the site of the site improvements. Demolition and site improvements, I should say. At 8B is a report from the city attorney regarding an ordinance approving a statutory development agreement between the city and Vista Investment LLC for the construction and operation of a 6-story, 130 guest room hotel located at 120 West Harvard Street, using the Downtown Pacific Plant's hotel incentives. And finally, the last action item under 8C will be a report from Public Works regarding the state of the community forest here in the city of Glendale. We'll conclude the night with 2 hearings. The first will be regarding a property located at 268 West Kenneth Road. This is for the Glendale Registered nomination and Mills Act application, followed by another Glendale Registered nomination and Mills Act application for a property located at 1300 North Maryland Avenue. That concludes next week's preview.
Thank you. Now, next is the consent items, and we will be moving item 4D to action items. Mr. Clerk, if you could please read 4D into the record so people know which item that is, and then after that, we'll entertain a motion and a second for the remainder of the consent calendar.
4D would be Public Works regarding slow street program installation and maintenance. 1, resolution to dispense with the bidding procedures set forth in Glendale Municipal Code Section 4.12.010A1, and authorize the Deputy Director of Finance Purchasing to solicit competitive bids and execute a contract pursuant to Glendale Municipal Code Section 4.12.010A3 for the slow streets program installations and maintenance.
So,
Uh,
yes,
I would like to move items 4A, 4B, 4C.
thank you. Is there a second? Second. Thank you. May we have roll call?
Second, sorry. I had my mic on.
Councilmember Agajanian?
Yeah.
Brotman?
Yes.
Najarian?
Yes.
Mayor Devine? And Mayor Pro Tem Kasakian.
Yes. Next is city council and staff comments. Are there any comments from any of my colleagues?
I have a couple items.
Councilmember Brotman.
Yes. First of all, if you haven't gone out to vote yet, the polls are still open till 8 o'clock, I believe. So please do vote. It's a very important election here. I just wanted to mention 2 pieces of legislation that we've been talking about here in council and that we've supported that has passed both houses and is on the governor's desk for signature, and they're pretty exciting. One of them is AB 1346, which is a bill by Mark Berman, and our own Assemblymember Laura Friedman is a co-author of that bill, and that would phase out the sale of gas, landscaping, and gardening equipment by January 1st, 2024. And what's most encouraging about that is that there was a trailer bill that set aside $30 million to go to the Air Resources Board and then to be passed down to the air quality districts to help with a rebate program so that small mom and pop gardeners can get financial assistance to be able to upgrade from the current gas leaf blowers and mowers that they use to electric ones, because although the electric ones are not all that expensive, you need multiple batteries in some cases, which is going to put a lot of cost on people, and so it was encouraging that $30 million was set aside. The other one is AB 43, which was our Assembly Member Laura Friedman's bill, and our State Senator Anthony Portantino was a co-author of this bill, and this was the one that would allow cities to have more flexibility to lower speed limits. We wouldn't be locked into this so-called 85th percentile rule in certain cases. And on that, I was hoping that maybe we'll wait till the governor signs it, but assuming the governor does sign it, I'd be interested at some point in whether a memo or whatever to let us know, what that does for us, what that might allow us to do, how that will affect us. But those 2 pieces of legislation, I think, are very positive. The last thing I want to say is, and Arm, could you just put up this image? So on the weekend, there was a fun ride hosted by Walk Bike Glendale, and here's the flyer for it. It already happened, so this isn't something that if you weren't there, you missed it. But there were 30 to 40 people. It was a great turnout. It was put together, and I want to give a shout out to a woman named Leah Serenian, who grew up in Glendale, moved out to New York, and now just moved back, and she's jumped into community affairs and organized this really well. There were stops where we were given water, and it was great. So, and there's another picture I want to show you. Yes, you could see that handsome guy with his 2 fingers up in the air. Anyway, just kidding. That was me. Yeah, and it was great. And they're going to be doing these, I think, every month now. So keep your eyes out. It'll be a lot of fun, and there'll be different routes that they do and things like that. So just wanted to shout out to them. Thanks.
My other colleagues? Councilmember Najarian? Okay. Well, yeah, I apologize. I wasn't able to make it to the walk bike Glendale event, although I did see them assembling in front of the library. I didn't have my bike with me, and actually I was there at their starting point for the opening of Glendale's newest farmers market, the Artsakh Garden Farmers Market, which debuted just outside of the library. It'll be taking place every Sunday morning. So I want to congratulate the organizers of it for a successful launch. It has already gotten some positive press coverage, and hopefully it'll continue to grow and be an asset for our community that has been asking for or needing a farmer's market in the other end of town. Of course, we have the very popular Montrose Farmers Market as well. That's a weekly fixture and mainstay of Glendale. Other than that, is there any staff comments, anything that staff would like to talk to us about?
No, Mr. Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem.
Council member is fine, RD, whatever. All right, let's just get through this. Community event announcements. We have a 3-minute portion. Do we have any callers for this?
Mayor Pro Tem, I do have 2 callers waiting on the line right now.
Let's go to the lines.
Salem Magdaleno. Salem, you're live. You have 3 minutes. Go ahead.
Okay. Hi. Good evening, council members and community members at home. I'm Salem Magdaleno. My pronouns are they, them.
And I'm Connor Eubank. My pronouns are also they, them.
Before we would formally begin, if you were watching, we'd like to take a moment of personal privilege to speak to Mayor Devine. We thank you for your years of silent service to the LGBTQ community. Our club advisor shared with us that you have been an ally before the term was even in fashion. As you have shown us such support, we are now sending our support your way during what we know is a trying time. You and your beloved husband are in our hearts.
We come to you this afternoon excited to speak about Solidarity Week, formerly known as Ally Week. This is the 7th year that the Gay Lesbian Student Education Network has hosted Solidarity Week at our schools, and we'll be celebrating it in our district. Currently, we know that CV, as well as our colleagues at Glendale High School, Hoover High School, Clark Magnet High School, and Rosemont will be hosting Solidarity Week the week of September 27th. So before we get into this, we just wanted to go over what Solidarity Week is, the activities it will include, as well as why it's important. So Solidarity Week is a time to show allyship and stand in solidarity with the LGBTQ plus community. And we changed the name from Ally Week to Solidarity Week to shift the focus away from just being allies to standing in solidarity with the community, as well as to recognize that allyship shouldn't be confined to just 1 week. In addition, we'll be hosting a variety of different activities on campus to celebrate Solidarity Week. First, members of our Gender Sexuality Alliance have created videos to educate the student body and faculty members about the importance of being an ally, how to be a productive ally, and the importance of personal pronouns, among a variety of other different issues. In addition to that, students have the ability to sign pledges, pledging that they will be proactive allies and that they will stand up for members of the LGBTQ community on and off campus. And finally, we have activities such as journalism, speech and debate, sports, and other groups on campus who have decided to take various actions showing that they are allies and that they will stand with the LGBTQ community.
I wanted to just add on to that, saying why Solidarity Week matters. It's very important to emphasize the necessity for solidarity for LGBTQ students, not only just in one specific week, but to also create that standard of solidarity throughout the year in and outside of school. Countless LGBTQ plus students feel unsafe and are isolated due to their identities within the school environment, and it is our job as the GSA to change that and create a more inclusive and safe environment, along with community supporters to create that more inclusive and safe environment.
We invite you to please join us in standing in solidarity with the LGBTQ community. And you can contact Ms. Harris or Dr. Platt at Crescenta Valley High School or the advisors at the other schools for a full calendar of events that will be held at each site.
Thank you for your time this evening and your continued allyship each and every day. Together, we ensure that GUSD is a comfortable environment for all students.
Thank you. Thank you to our callers and for that important announcement. Next caller.
Tony Pasarella. Tony, you have 3 minutes. Go ahead, Tony.
Good evening, council members. Tony Pasarella. Arm, could you play that video, please? Arm's going to play a video of that pop-up health fair.
Armenian Akashian, the former president of the Armenian American Nursing Association, one of the founders of this health festival. Zarmine, please tell us what's your impression and your sentiments to the community.
Yeah, I would like the community to get the benefit of today's event. So we are here, the physicians are here, the nurses are here, the health department is here, and then so COVID-19 vaccine is being administered. Here the nurses are checking blood pressures and then pulse oximetry. So this is a good event. Bring the family over if you're not vaccinated, because this is the only way that we can prevent infection. So as hamajaragi miak but miak
Tony, we're having a little bit of technical difficulties.
So şat kaçaların kaguti antamnere
Stop
bor
it,
ice.
please.
I'm trying, Tony. Give me a second. We're having some technical difficulties.
We won't deduct from your time, Mr. Pasarella, as we figure this out.
We need to start it all over again because I never saw the video.
We won't start all over, but we will give you the allotment of the time, the balance of the time.
I would like to see the video. That's not my fault that you had technical difficulties. You ought to give me back the whole time. There's no other callers.
Mr. Pasarella, we do have an agenda of items that have been properly noticed and that we and the public are expecting to have deliberation on. As much as I would like to indulge this, you can rest assured that those of us in the chambers did see the video, and I believe people at home should have at least heard the audio. So please proceed.
Okay, well, the point of that was what she said at the end, where the vaccine was the only cure for infection. False. That is an out-and-out falsity. No mention of hydroxychloroquine by anybody on this council or anybody in Sacramento or Washington as far as that goes. And the little General Fauci, we never heard anything about ivermectin. Nobel Prize winner, by the way, in 2015. Regeneron IV infusion, vitamin C, D, and zinc, quercetin, all these work, natural herd immunity. Dr. Peter McCullough, world-renowned cardiologist, says that herd immunity is far superior to vaccine immunity. Azithromycin, colomycin, aspirin, budesonide nebulizer, on and on and on. Dr. Richard Bartlett says Regeneron has reduced hospitalizations by up to 70%. And Dr. Zeb Zelenko, upstate New York, says treatment with hydroxychloroquine and zinc reduces death by 85%. And he was nominated for a Nobel Prize for that discovery. So I have a big problem with that nurse saying that the vaccine is the only cure for this, and it's nonsense. And that vaccine, that pop-up fair was a dog and pony. Basically, it was just a promotion for the vaccine. There was no informed consent going on. There was no fact sheets going on. Those doctors with the long white coats were basically looking for a photo op. So it was all nonsense. It wasn't like the past events with these health fairs. There was nobody getting tested for anything there. I was an hour and a half there. You can ask city manager Golani, and I was talking to him. I was there an hour and a half. It was nothing but a vaccine promotion. And the vaccine is killing people, by the way. 14,000 on BAR's website, 700,000+ adverse events. People need to wake up. You all join the cult, man. You join the Cobalt cult. You've been totally brainwashed into this. It's unbelievable. People of Glendale, please wake up.
All right, thank you. And we will move on to the rest of the agenda. The next items are, we have one more caller? Is there one more caller?
One more caller, Mayor.
Okay.
Karen Quack, you're live. Karen, you have 3 minutes. Go ahead.
Hi, this is Karen Quack. I emailed a PDF file to Mr. Jemian about 20 minutes before this meeting started. If you would be kind enough to post it, please. And while that's loading, I extend my deepest condolences to Mayor Devine. I do remember that discussion on Grayson, to which Art Devine contributed a great deal at Mr. Brotman's house 2 years ago. And I also mourn his passing. Okay, I would like to announce a forum on fare-free transit to be held tomorrow night at 7 o'clock. This will be co-hosted by the Glendale Tenants Union and ACT LA. During the pandemic, bus rides have been offered fare-free to all passengers, and this is a push toward making that change permanent. And Mr. Najarian, as a representative at LA Metro, you would be particularly welcome to join us. Thank you very much. Oh, by the way, translations are available in Armenian and Spanish below. Thank you very much. Goodbye.
Mayor, I do have one more caller. Malcolm Johnson, you're live. You have 3 minutes, Malcolm.
I first want to say, mourn the passing of Mr. Devine, and my heart goes out to Mayor Devine. I hope she is able to go right through this, and I know how hard this is right now. But my immediate concern is Mr. Pasarella now passing along lethal medical information that he apparently got from his medical degree on Facebook. I'm sorry. I mean, the vaccine is the only known treatment for this, other than having to go to the hospital and get resected and getting micro antibodies. So please do not take horse paste, do not take ivermectin, do not take any of these things that are not prescribed by an actual doctor. Mr. Pasarella is lying to you. And I'm not sure why he's being allowed to spread this information on a public airways, but that's our country we live in. Thank you very much.
Mayor Proton, I do not have any more callers at this time.
Okay. Before we move on, and next we will get into the actual agenda of this evening's meeting, I do want to ask staff of our request to look into or provide, and it can be done in a memorandum, it doesn't have to be on, because we recently had a discussion about the impacts of the DA's policies on our city and many other cities. And I was just wondering what it would take if we were to take on the role of prosecuting certain misdemeanors ourselves, as Pasadena and San Diego and I believe Santa Monica do, and just see manpower-wise, given how many we have, what it would require for us to pick up the slack where it hasn't. And of course, that was a service that was being provided by the county. Is there any way, if we were to do that, to recoup any of the expenses of that? I don't think there would be, perhaps, because it was a quote-unquote free service that the county, or we were being provided by the DA's office. But I would like to know, given how many we have, what it would take for that. Is there anyone that would second that? Thanks.
We sort of talked about that. We sort of covered that,
Yeah.
but if you'd like a summary,
Not a full-blown discussion, Councilmember Najarian, but just in a memo to see if it's something that's cost-wise worthwhile.
I would support that.
Thank you. All right, now to item 7, the adoption of ordinances. Mr. Clerk, if you could read those. into the
7A,
record.
City Attorney regarding an ordinance of the Council of the City of Glendale, California, amending Title II of the Glendale Municipal Code, 1995, by deleting sections 2.83.030, 2.83.040, 2.83.050, 2.83.060, 2.83.070, 2.83.080, 2.83.090, 2.83.100, 2.83.102, 2.83.103, 2.83.104, and 2.83.105, enacting new sections 2.83.030, 2.83.040, 2.83.050, 2.83.060, 2.83.070, 2.83.080, 2.83.090, 2.83.100, and amending sections 2.83.110 pertaining to the Code of Ethics for elected and appointed officials.
I move item
I'll introduce
7.
the ordinance
Yeah.
and move the resolution, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, second then.
All right, may we have a roll?
It's an ordinance for adoption.
It's an ordinance for adoption, moved by Councilmember Najarian, seconded by Councilmember Agajanian. Is there any further discussion on this? Did anyone want to comment? If not, let's have the roll call, please.
Councilmember Agajanian?
Yes.
Brotman? Yes. Najarian?
Yes.
Mayor Devine? Mayor Pro Tem Kasakian?
Yes. And item B? 7B.
7B would be community development regarding an ordinance of the City of Glendale, California, revoking Title V of the Glendale Municipal Code 1995 regarding business licenses and regulations, and introducing a proposed Title V in its place, as well as amending Title 15 to relocate contractors' licenses.
I introduce the ordinance.
So this is for adoption. So you move for the adoption, Councilmember Agajanian?
Yes.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Sorry, I'm a little confused procedurally. Do we, when we introduce an ordinance, we have a second, we have a roll call? Or do-
So when it's introduced,
These are both adoption of ordinances, so these were previously discussed we had these discussions at a prior council meeting. So item 7 is listed as adoption of ordinances, so this is when, after this, it will go into effect fully after 30 days.
Okay, so we can just go straight away into, okay. So if it hasn't been seconded, I'll second it.
Sure. I believe Councilmember Najarian did second it. Thank you, Councilmember Brotman, and for that clarification. Let's have a roll.
Councilmember Agajanian?
Yes.
Brotman?
Yes.
Najarian?
Yes.
Mayor Devine? Mayor Pro Tem Kasakian?
Yes. Thank you. What is next under action items?
8 would be action items. 8A, management services regarding introduction of an ordinance adding Chapter 8.46 to Title 8 of the Glendale Municipal Code in connection with regulations for the distribution of disposable foodware accessories. 1, ordinance for introduction. 2, resolution adding administrative fines and fees in conjunction with enforcement of disposable foodware accessories and regulations.
All right, staff, please.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem Kasakian, members of City Council. This item is presented to you in response to a request from Councilmember Brotman, and this item is an introduction of ordinance. And I'm going to invite David Jones, our Sustainability Officer, to make a presentation.
Good evening, I'm Mayor Pro Tem Kasakian and members of the City Council. So I'm here today to recommend for introduction an ordinance adding Chapter 8.46 to the Glendale Municipal Code, regulating the distribution of disposable foodware accessories. So I'm just going to give a bit of background how we got here, review quickly the ordinance, and then be available for any questions that you may have. So this action originally came from council back in January 26, where staff were asked to review disposable foodware accessory programs. We took a bit of time to do that because we were waiting for the City of LA and the County of Los Angeles to develop their disposable foodware programs. And then in June, staff provided a report to the Sustainability Commission on those programs and potentially what a City of Glendale disposable foodware accessory program would look like. At that June 3rd meeting, the Sustainability Commission asked staff to contrast and compare the LA City and LA County Ordinance. Staff came back to the Sustainability Commission on July 1st with that analysis, and at that meeting, the Sustainability Commission recommended that City Council direct staff to prepare an ordinance regulating the distribution of disposable foodware accessories based on the ordinance passed by the City of LA. And we presented that to City Council on August 10th, at which time City Council directed staff to prepare an ordinance regulating the distribution of disposable foodware accessories. And that brings us to this evening. A little bit of background of why we are here. In 2016, believe it or not, 561 billion foodware disposable items were used in the United States. The issue with these items, they are hard to manage, hard to recycle. They cause litter. They end up going down storm drains that end up in our oceans and beaches. And believe it or not, often when people receive these items, they just end up going back home and ending up in a kitchen drawer somewhere, just accumulating over time. So there is a need to see if we can manage the distribution of these items. So there is an opportunity to reduce the amount of disposable foodware accessories given out to customers by regulating their distribution. So that's what the ordinance for introduction talks about today. So again, just a bit background who this ordinance would potentially affect. So the proposed ordinance regulating the distribution of disposable foodware accessories would include items such as utensils, such as utensils, condiment packers, disposable plastic drinking straws, stirrers and splash sticks. It would impact all food and beverage providers within the city of Glendale. It would also potentially impact third-party delivery services and online orders. And it would impact those people dining in, driving through, taking delivery of items, and having items delivered to them at their places of residence or their homes, or wherever that may be. So the purpose of discussion today is to review the ordinance and review the fee resolution associated with the ordinance too. So what are the key requirements? What are we asking for our food and beverage facilities to do? So no food and beverage facility shall provide self-serve disposable foodware accessories dispensers or provide or offer disposable foodware accessories to a dine-in or take-out customer except upon customer request. No food and beverage facility shall provide disposable foodware accessories to a drive-through, take-out, or delivery customer except upon customer requests. But the establishment may ask a drive-through customer or delivery customer if the customer wants any disposable foodware accessories. Food and beverage facilities may choose whether to provide specific disposable foodware accessories to a drive-through customer, take-out, or delivery customer for health and safety purposes, such as to prevent spills for the safe transportation or delivery of prepared food or beverages. This ordinance also pertains to online orders. Food facilities that use online food ordering platforms are required to provide options on the online ordering platform that enable customers to choose which disposable foodware accessories to include with each online order. In order to do this, food facilities that use online ordering platforms must provide an option or method for posting a customized list of disposable foodware accessories offered on their platform. Including in the online platforms is an opt-out function for a customer placing an online order to request available disposable foodware accessories as part of the customer's online order, and not provide disposable foodware accessories where the opt-in function is not selected. So the customer would have to actually physically say that they want those items. Food delivery orders, prepared food facilities may choose to include specific disposable foodware accessories such as cup lids, spill plugs and trays, etc., in order to prevent spills and deliver prepared food and beverages safely. The city proposes doing an extensive 90-day education campaign associated with this ordinance if it were to pass. We'd reach out virtually, we'd undertake workshops, and we would reach out to all the establishments, and we would mail information to those establishments. The purpose of the education campaign would be explain thoroughly the proposed ordinance and how the food establishments, food and beverage establishments, may be able to comply with the potential ordinance. During this education campaign and early rollout of the proposed ordinance, any enforcement would be suspended for 180 days. Once the ordinance does come into effect, there'll be 2 written violations And on the third violation, there'll potentially be a $25 per day fine, not to exceed a maximum of $300.
Excuse me.
Yes, Councilmember Agajanian.
What it means by $25 per day, not to exceed $300 on what period of time?
It would be accumulate per day. So it'd be
Per day?
$25 per day until they reach the maximum $300.
But you said $25 per day for each violation there.
So every time they don't correct their violation, they'll be keeping fined $25 a day until the maximum of $300. But
Per day.
hopefully, we would work with them to make sure that they got into compliance before that occurred.
Per day, 300 per day.
No, $25 per day, up to a maximum of $300.
For which period of time? Again, per day?
Yeah.
300 per day.
No, $25 per day until, and the maximum of 300 has been achieved, and then the fining of $25 a day would stop at that point. It wouldn't keep accumulating beyond the $300.
Okay. So time is not the essence. So it's $25 and one day can get to $300.
Over a period of how many days it would take, yes, for them, if they didn't act and change their ways and come into compliance with the ordinance. But the purpose of the education program would be to work with them to make sure that didn't happen. So that's why we're going to do a fairly extensive outreach and education campaign to the food and beverage establishments so they understand, and we'll work with them to make sure that they can adhere to the ordinance.
All right.
Councilmember Brotman.
Just to clarify on that, in the, it seems to me it would be unlikely that somebody's going to keep violating day after day after day and hit the 300. But in the event that somebody just does not want to comply, they get to the 300, at that point, it would be referred to the city attorney if they're just saying, no, we reject this. I think that's kind of how it
That
would
is
work,
correct,
right?
yeah.
So I doubt that'll happen because the food vendors are actually saving money by not giving out those things. So I doubt it would happen, but isn't that kind of how it could potentially work?
That is my understanding of how it works.
Okay.
Okay. Please continue.
So staff recommend that council introduce an ordinance to regulate the use of disposable foodware accessories in the city of Glendale, and also adopt the resolution adding certain administrative fines and fees in connection with the enforcement of the disposable foodware accessories regulations. There are a number of alternatives on the table. As shown, City Council could request staff to provide the council with the Los Angeles County form of the single-use foodware accessories upon request ordinance for adoption. Alternate 2, the council may delay the introduction of the ordinance until staff completes public outreach and assessment of fiscal impact. Alternate 3, the council may consider any other alternative not presented by staff. And with that, I'm available for any questions.
Do my colleagues have questions, or let me ask, which of my colleagues would like to ask questions first? All right.
No, I have a few
Everyone's
comments.
being too polite here, so I know that Councilmember Brotman brought this issue forward, so would you like to go first?
Yeah, I don't have questions, but just wanted to say, first of all, thank you for the work you put into this, going to the Sustainability Commission twice, looking at a range of different ordinances, and finally settling on this language here. So I think substantively, I'm happy with what you've got on the table, and I'd definitely, when the time comes, be honored to introduce the ordinance. Just one of the things for people that wonder about this, when you talked about all those billions of items that get thrown away. So just as an example, today, we ordered some food here before this meeting, and in the bag, the vendor, and I won't say what, I don't even know what restaurant it was.
I
but
don't
whoever it
think
was,
it's important to name
no,
the
it's not
restaurant.
important. But in the bag, they did what they've been taught to do, what everybody thinks you have to do, which is throw these items in the bag. So we get all these items, but we have silverware here. So this goes into a drawer, and I guess potentially it would build up until somebody got frustrated and said, let's just throw it all away, right? And apparently these items, I spoke to the owner of one of the famous kebab shops in Glendale, and he said these cost about 15 cents each, which doesn't seem like a lot, but when you have a big order, if there's a party and you're putting a lot of these in, I mean, it adds up. So I think what this does is it provides some cover for the food vendors, because everybody's afraid if I don't do it, my customer is going to get mad at me. But if everybody is having to follow this, then we all benefit, they save money, and our landfill benefits by not having to have all this junk go into it. And so I'm really happy that we are here and that we're doing this. There are a lot of other steps I think we need to take, but this is a good one. So thank you.
Council members Najarian or Agajanian?
I'll take those. Don't throw those away, Dan.
Okay, you can have them.
Put them on my desk. No, I support the ordinance, and I think it's very good that we're taking these steps. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
I will second. I guess you introduced already.
Unless you had anything you wanted to say.
The only thing I would say is that, I think that if we were to introduce this ordinance, it would be 30 days from now. Well, actually, it would come back for adoption potentially when?
Earliest would be next week.
Next week, the earliest. And then after that, it's about 30 days until it goes into effect. And then from that, there's a 180-day period before we start cracking the whip on individuals. I did mention at the prior meeting my concerns that I had with putting the restaurants that have been struggling during the pandemic behind the eight ball, and putting them in a position where they may be victims of negative reviews or whatever else that individuals may post against them because they had an order and they didn't get the utensils that they've up until now felt entitled to receiving, the customers, that is. And I also had asked that we allow or have an allowance for the self-serve or the areas. But from what I understand, this ordinance goes full-blown, nothing unless you actually ask a person, which is akin to the city of Los Angeles's ordinance.
That is correct, Mayor Pro Tem, yes.
I suppose the intentions of this are well, and I want to make sure that we support this and get rid of single-use plastics. But I am very concerned about the impacts that we have on the family-owned businesses, the shops that are struggling to come back. I will support this when it comes back, but I will support it with the condition that you do more than the adequate, whatever you feel is adequate, to go beyond that, to make sure that especially small businesses that we have that may have language disabilities have a clear way of communicating to their customer base, whatever language that may be in, that it is not the fault of the restaurant, that this is a city policy, that we provide the signs, that we print the signs on whatever recycled paper, on whatever, with whatever recycled ink you want, to make sure that it is available. And not only available, not upon a request, but we directly go to them and say that we're putting this sign up to let your customers know. Because the last thing I want is to have any of these businesses impacted by this. I know that there are callers on this item, so I'd like to hear from the callers. How many callers do we have, Mr. Clerk?
Mayor Pro Tem, I have 2 callers on this item right now.
All right, let's go to the first caller.
Lynn Moses, you have 3 minutes. Lynn? I do believe Lynn just hung up on us. Maria Manjares, you have 3 minutes. Go ahead, Maria. Maria? Maria Manjares, can you hear me? Maria?
Okay.
Lynn Moses, you're live. You have 3 minutes, Lynn. Go ahead.
Oh, thank you, sir. I had hung up. 3 minutes? Okay, thank you. First, I'd like to say this is an excellent idea or attempt, excuse me. Our oceans, it's not just our landfills, it's our ocean. And we are in really, really bad shape. There is plastic by the million of tons in the ocean. So anything we can do, even looking into possibly reusable or biodegradable silverware, or not silverware, but dinnerware. But my curiosity, though, is how it's going to be enforced. It seems like a monumental task, but I guess that'll be worked out. But any efforts you can make toward making this work, as far as not just the the disposable plastics, but for eating. But you should maybe create a department for the city. I mean, who needs more bureaucracy? But I think every city should create a reusable or biodegradable department, or some kind of department to reduce the disposable plastic items. I listened to the City of LA broadcast today, and they were using plastic for their repaving the surfaces of the streets. LA doesn't do very much. City of LA doesn't do very much correctly, but that was a positive that I heard today. So I'd like to encourage you to make more inroads into removing plastics, not just the utensils, but all items, all single use, the bags and everything else. We have to come up with solutions that work, or we're not going to be around. They're predicting a mass extinction event in the ocean at any time, because the plant life, not plant life, the fish can't live in a sea of plastic, obviously. Thank you.
Thank you. Next caller.
Craig Cadwalder. Craig, you have 3 minutes. Go ahead.
Thank you. My name is Craig Cadwalader, and first I'd like to express my condolences to Mayor Devine and her family. I have been with the Surfrider Foundation South Bay chapter for nearly 2 decades as a volunteer, and I strongly support this ordinance. And contrary to negative reviews, many, many people now give positive reviews to restaurants that do things that protect the environment. In fact, UCLA Lux Center did a report that showed that not only do businesses save money, but their goodwill with their customers is improved when they do things like this. I do want to commend the staff on an outstanding report. I realize the amount of work that went into researching and publishing a very smart and comprehensive staff report. And I did want to say that a lot of the third-party delivery services already have incorporated some of these elements to opt in, and we strongly support that. Also, the fact is the businesses are saving money, so it's not a burden to them, it's actually a benefit to them. And it's easy enough not to just leave it out. So the implementation, as outlined in that report, is outstanding because of the educational program. I think is a very strong element of this ordinance, and strongly support that. So this is good for business, this is good for consumers, and it's good for the environment. And thinking up with the City of LA, it's not confusing. So there's 4 million people in the City of LA who are going to be under the LA City Skip the Stuff ordinance. This is smart to sync it with that. And I strongly encourage council to go forward and approve this item. And thank you very much for your consideration. That's all.
Thank you.
Carolina, you have 3 minutes. Carolina, go ahead.
Hi. Hi, can you hear me?
Yes,
Yes.
we can. Please go ahead.
Okay, I just want to comment about something that is not mentioned in here. I am very disappointed with the fees that you are talking about, and you didn't fully explain how it's going to work. It's still not clear for people and this city that we are not knowledgeable about this. How much money we are spending in this project, who is going to be benefit from this project, because where the food is going to go, how it's going to be processed, how much money is going to give to this new company or corporation who's going to be in charge of this, how we're going to benefit the city in return. And I'm very disappointed that the first thing that I heard very clear is a $25 fine, which one, like he say, one of the council members, he's concerned about something that we need to be main concern is about the business that they are struggling. And then the first thing that he mentioned is the fee. Very disappointed. I said again, up to $300. I don't understand clearly. And where this fine or fee is going to be? What they're going to use that money after they charge or they penalize people when they don't do in the right way, something that is new for a lot of people that we live in here, and we are not used, and they're going to be a mistake. Even workers, I know, I'm going to the restaurant, sometimes I order one plate, and they put me 6 of those to go silverware. I didn't ask, how was it before when they didn't have this at the restaurant? Because it's nothing like it got into the fashion, it got into the commodity, it got into the, I want to keep customers, so I'm going to add this, I'm going to add that. But how was before? I want to a little more history about that. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, no more calls, and we will not accept any more calls on this item. People have had ample opportunity to call in. In fact, we took more callers than we initially had. So comments have been made. I believe I've made my comments as well, and I don't think anyone has necessarily been swayed one way or another, unless one of my colleagues wishes to speak out on it. I will add just one more thing, because as a chair of this meeting, I'll take certain privilege and say that as we're doing this, let's be aware that we have schools where people use disposable items, children use disposable items every day. And I don't know what considerations have been made to educate our young and most impressionable minds about this policy, or if there's even been any discussions with our school district that this is a direction we're going in. We'd like to work with you. I've also raised with staff the issue of, there's potato starch material that's allegedly biodegradable and far more friendly. What are we doing to incentivize? Because people are still going to be using items. It would be ideal if they were not using petroleum-based products or carbon-based, or not carbon, I'm sorry. Well, we'll just say petroleum. I'm not going to go into my... Fossil fuel. Thank you. Thank you very much from the gallery. So what is being done regarding that, et cetera. So there's a lot to work with here. And with that, I will turn it over to Councilmember Brotman to introduce this.
Okay, so I will introduce the ordinance, and I don't believe we need a second for that, right?
We do not.
No.
There is a resolution for the
Okay.
fines. You can either adopt that tonight, or we can adopt it next week.
We can adopt it tonight if you'd like to also
I'll-
introduce that in
I'll
council.
move this is the resolution for
Resolution, yes,
fees,
sir.
right?
For the
I'll
fees.
move that resolution.
Councilman? All right, and seconded by Councilmember
Before we
Agajanian.
go,
Sure,
did you,
please.
I'm sorry, you have mentioned about the school cafeteria. Is our ordinance covers the school
No.
district too?
At
Because
this time,
the school districts are independent
yes.
for themselves. So we cannot enforce this, right?
Certainly, and that was not my intention to say that we should enforce it at the schools.
No, I
but
mean,
that there's a
have the
elephant
rule.
in the room that we do have a number of schools where children literally every day are using these utensils. And if we can work with them, provide our support, whatever assistance that they need to hopefully improve their practices at the end of the day, and of course the college as well, we ought to do that. We should never forget that we're one of 3 agencies. We of course run the city, but they are the ones that run our schools and our college.
Yes, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, we do on occasion, on a regular basis, actually provide educational material and sessions with school children, and we will make sure that we'll make this part of that education campaign.
Besides education directly to the kids, I think we ought to talk to the cafeteria staff and whoever else their vendors are, if we're truly sincere about our efforts to rid the world of the scourge of single-use plastics. There was a motion and a second. Let's have a roll call, please.
Councilmember Agajanian,
Yes.
Brotman,
Yes.
Najarian,
Yes.
Mayor Devine, and Mayor Pro Tem Kasakian.
Yes. All right, next item, please.
Next item, 8B, Human Resources regarding Memorandum of Understanding, MOU, between the City of Glendale and the Glendale City Employee Association. 1, resolution approving and adopting the MOU commencing July 1st, 2021 through June 30th, 2024. 2, resolution providing for the establishment of classification titles and compensation for employees covered by the Glendale City Employees Association MOU. 3, resolution of appropriation in the sum of $1,259,545 to provide funding for the MOU agreement between the City of Glendale City Employees Association for the fiscal year commencing July 1st, 2021 through June 30th, 2022.
Mr. Doyle or Mr. Golanian?
That's fine.
Mr. Doyle, back to you.
Is there, excuse me.
Yes.
Is there any problem to introduce this item without the, I mean, we know what we want to do, basically.
I think just a very brief, Mr. Doyle, emphasis on the brief part, synopsis as to how we've come to where we are today. Thank you.
Item before you are resolutions approving a 3-year memorandum of understanding between the City of Glendale and Glendale City Employees Association for a period of July 1st, 2021 through June 30th.
Microphone.
Microphone.
Okay. Mayor Pro Tem, members of council, this item before you are resolutions approving a 3-year MOU between the City of Glendale and Glendale City Employees Association for a period of July 1st, 2021 through June 30th, 2024. The GCA is our largest bargaining group with close to 700 dedicated city employees. This MOU is the culmination of over 4 months of negotiations between the city and GCA. It's a very challenging process as they are a large group. A lot of issues and interests were brought forth throughout the course of the negotiations. The primary concerns brought forth by the GCA had to do with maintaining a reasonably competitive compensation structure in light of the escalating cost of living in this region, with the erosion of purchasing power a major concern. Last year, in what were the early stages of the pandemic, the GCA came forward and agreed upon an MOU that contained no cost of living adjustments nor any benefit enhancements for the entire year. Although the pandemic is still with us, we believe we're now in a position to address the proposals brought forth by the GCA and provide modest adjustments in compensation and benefits for these employees. This proposed 3-year MOU contains cost of living adjustments that equate to roughly 2% over each year of this MOU agreement through a combination of cost of living adjustments and small reductions in retiree cost sharing. There's also significant relief from medical insurance costs, as this group had amongst the highest costs for its medical insurance premiums. Additionally, there were adjustments to several special pay categories within the MOU for our environmental inspectors, those who inspect underground and above ground storage tank facilities, For our engineers, the water section who obtain water distribution license. For our auto mechanics who obtain the ASC certification. This is a good certification to have, although it's not a requirement for the job. So it's something that is given for those who go above and beyond the minimum requirements for the position. Additionally, for our employees within the police department who work in the police Property and Records Bureau, there were some adjustments to address inequities within that group between other civilian positions within the police department. Additionally, our lead worker fire dispatchers saw an adjustment from $1.25 to 5% while serving in the lead worker capacity. These are just some of the items that are addressed in this comprehensive MOU agreement. Again, these negotiations took effect or occurred over the course of the spring and summer of this year, and we're very pleased to have this done. This item was brought before the GCA membership for a vote last month and was approved by 79% of the membership. At this time, we're asking that the council similarly approve this 3-year memorandum of understanding. Again, this item has 3 resolutions: a resolution adopting the MOU, a resolution for classification and compensation adjustments, which address the salary-related items, and then there's a resolution of appropriation, which addresses the funding of this MOU. So with that, Mayor Pro Tem, if you have questions, I'd be happy to try and answer them for you.
Thank you. I'll turn to my colleagues to see if they have any questions.
There is no question. I would like to move the item.
Sure. Mr. Council or Mr. City Attorney, is there anything preventing the council member from moving all 3 items at once?
No.
All right.
Okay, I moved item 8B1, 8B2, and 8B3.
And I will second, but we don't have any callers?
Do we have any callers on
Mayor
this?
Pro Tem and Councilmember Brotman, we do not have any callers.
Sure.
Okay, well,
All
then
right.
I'll second those 3 items.
Thank you.
All right. With that, let's have a roll call, please.
Councilmember Agajanian?
Yes.
Brotman?
Yes.
Najarian?
Yes.
Mayor Devine? Mayor Pro Tem Kasakian?
Yes. Item 8C, please.
Item 8C is Public Works regarding program to install shelter shade structures at bus stops to improve quality of life for bus riders. 1, motion providing direction to staff to do the following survey: 117 bus stops to update the 2017 list of bus stops prioritized by rideship that are candidates for a bus shelter structure as part of Phase 1. Survey the 234 other bus stops to prepare a list of bus stops prioritized by rideship that are candidates for a bus shade structure as part of Phase 2. Return to the City Council with the survey outcomes and revised cost estimates for both programs phases.
Galanian.
Yes. Mayor Pro Tem Kasakian, member City Council, this item is presented to you actually in response to Mayor Pro Tem Kasakian's request for a study of our bus shelters that currently do not have bus stops, currently don't have shade structures or bus shelters. And Ms. Martha DeAndrea, our newer transit manager, will make that presentation and seek your direction.
Please proceed.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem and council members. Today I'm presenting a report on shelter shade structures at bus stops, a quality of life investment. There are 2 main reasons for installing shade at bus stops. The first is global warming. The increase in temperature will make waiting for a bus uncomfortable. The other reason is to add transit amenities. Bus shelter shade structures help to retain transit riders and encourage new riders to take transit by providing a comfortable place to wait for the bus. In 2017, a survey of existing bus stops by boardings was completed by transit staff. Of the 467 bus stops located in Glendale, 116 had bus shelters, 234 could not accommodate a shelter due to insufficient space and would not meet ADA requirements or had low boardings, and 117 had the potential to install a classic bus shelter. The current 116 bus shelters were installed through 2 sources. The first was through the City of Glendale's contract with Outfront Media, which installed 70 shelters with advertising. The second was through the City of Glendale's community redevelopment, streetscape projects, and street corridor projects that funded an additional 46 shelters. Both funding sources are not available. Here are 3 examples of bus stops where sidewalks are narrow and could not accommodate a classic bus shelter. Here.
You having a hard time switching?
Yeah.
Okay, let me know and I'll switch it from my.
Okay. Staff looked at the options available for bus shelter and shade structures. Option 1 is the classic bus shelter. These are similar to the current bus shelters located throughout Glendale. The classic bus shelter is available through a CALAC joint procurement. Option 2 was a newly designed shade structure. Staff reached out to a bus shelter manufacturer, and they designed a single-pole shade structure. Unfortunately, it was expensive to install due to the depth of the footing. Option 3 looked at shade structures from other cities. The City of Santa Monica's shade structures were unique, but were also expensive to install. The City of Los Angeles Streets LA is currently in negotiations to select their advertising bus shelter contractor. We are waiting to see if any opportunities to purchase shade structures from their contract become available. Streets LA had a demonstration of the bus shelter shade structures from 2 of their bidders. Here are a sample of the bus shelters and the sunshade blade that were demonstrated to the public. So that bottom one is the only shade structure that they demoed, and it is a sunshade blade. It actually moves along the pole. With your direction, the next steps include survey bus stops for ADA compliance and the number of transit boardings. Phase 1 will include bus shelter locations with high transit boardings. Phase 2 would include bus stops ranked by boardings that are candidates for shade structures. Provide bus shelter and shade options. Provide transit amenity options such as static or real-time bus arrival information, lighting, and charging stations. And finally, determine the shelter shade and maintenance costs for each phase and potential funding sources. That concludes my presentation.
Yes, Councilmember Agajanian.
In the report, the page 2, where it says stops where shelter is not possible. So it means the walkway is so narrow?
Yes.
How wide it should be that you can provide a shelter?
I don't know what the ADA requirements are.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem, members of City Council. We typically look for 6 foot to 8 foot wide sidewalks for ADA compliance. So these areas are not as wide to accommodate ADA, so that's why we're going to look at other options potentially that may not be a classic bus shelter, but it could be like the single pole or the blade that was shown earlier.
So doesn't matter then how narrow it is, still it's possible to have a shelter.
Yes, you can have another form of, it wouldn't be the classic shelter, but it would be a shade, more of a shade to keep away from sun and, provide some kind of a shade.
Also, are we studying that how many people they, let's say, stop in bus shelter? Because there are bus stop. Because there are bus stops that people, they get off, but you don't see basically somebody to get in. I don't know if it's end of the line or bus route. Do we study that before we look for a shelter?
Yes, that's part of the survey. We'd be looking at not only the bus stop itself, but also the number of boardings at that stop, whether it be Metro or B-Line service. So we will, obviously if there aren't many boardings, we would not install a shade structure.
Okay, thank you.
Any of my other colleagues with comments or questions? Councilmember Najarian?
Well, I think, I think the action here is to direct staff to go out and find funding and find locations and find designs. So I do support that. I think we need to make, there's gonna be a lot more people riding transit in the future. We need to make it as comfortable and inviting as possible. So I do support this item.
And, yeah, thank you. I also support it. I'm concerned at the large number of locations where we can't place stops. And I think I saw on that chart, there were 15 locations where there's over 100 boardings per day. Is that per day? Over 100 boardings per day. So these are heavily used. And we're unable because the sidewalks are too narrow. I mean, it kind of, I know this isn't what we're discussing today, but it highlights a real problem that we've, for many, many years, we've prioritized moving cars over the safety and convenience of pedestrians and transit riders. And so we have these incredibly narrow sidewalks. I think you had a picture of Pacific, which if I've walked down there and it's frightening. So I know that's a longer term issue. We definitely have to widen sidewalks. It's sad that we're here, but what I was wondering is in those locations that are narrow, or even in the locations where we can put a bus shelter, whether we can use trees, because obviously a bus shelter, it depends on the angle of the bus and I'm sorry, the angle of the sun, the time of day, and lots of times you may be sitting there and you've got the thing over you and you at least have a place to sit, but you have the blazing hot sun on you. If we could think about, some trees, which also have obviously the benefit of clearing the air, cooling it down and just the aesthetics, right? If we could couple those, because I know we're looking at the urban forest and if we could couple those or maybe use trees in some of these places that are just too narrow, that's what I would hope you could look into that. But definitely anywhere we can put a structure, we should, it'd be good. Thanks.
Councilmember Broadman, members of City Council, absolutely. That's one of the amenities that we're going to look at. And you brought up the State of the Community Forest presentation, which we'll do next week. So we're going to look at that in conjunction with areas that would need, that wouldn't fit anything else. And we would provide, we'd look at planting more trees as an alternative option.
Oh, and one more thing, sorry. One more thing is just as far as the other amenities on these structures. So in the high trafficked bus stops, or I don't know what you call it, but the bus stops that have a lot of boardings. I like the idea of that. What I think LA has in a few locations is that next bus kind of digital display or something that's. And I think they have, some of them they'll have a little solar panel and they'll have that display and they'll have a charging port. To the extent that we can, get those costs covered through these advertising contracts, I mean, I'd be all for that.
Absolutely.
Well, I know, and I think we have at least one caller on this, but before we go to the caller, I'll make my comments in case the caller wants to comment on what we've said. So I know that there's a great deal of emphasis on the effects of climate change and the amount of heat, but ultimately we need shelter from the elements. That includes sun and during the times when the rare occasions in Southern California when we do have rain, but when we have it, we really have it, to also protect those people waiting for the buses from those elements as well. So, and as much as I appreciate that we can have trees, and I believe we do need more trees, and we need to grow our urban forest to mitigate the amount of carbon dioxide and the impacts that we have had on the community, we should still look at decent shelters that achieve multiple goals. I know that it was mentioned in the report that there will be an opportunity to negotiate with the advertisers for renewal of contracts potentially or whatever it may be, but when that time comes, I would like us to look into expanding the shelters through that contract, or at least have them somehow subsidize the cost. So I think if we can have shelters that can have an advertising component to it, and that allows us to find a way to partially fund this, that's great. If we have to fund it ourselves as a city, I have no problem doing that either. I don't know, I can't speak for my colleagues, but I think it's the very least we can do for our residents. It's one of the basics that we ought to be checking the box off on, making our bus stops a more pleasing place for people to wait for periods of time. Whether we use the digital signage or not, I would like to also see that whatever stops we have a actual posted bus schedule, which not many of them do currently. And I think there's also the issue of bus stops that we have control over, because it's shared with an MTA line versus a bus stop that is just MTA, is within our city's borders, but we will potentially leave it orphaned because it is not in our care. We should also look at ways to provide shelter at those locations. So with that, what I would like to see is something that's creative and cost effective. I don't know if, I look at the ones that City LA has, and some of them look nice. By the way, in terms of ADA compliance and narrow sidewalks, that has never stopped us from putting a bus shelter somewhere before, because I can easily take any one of our staff and the public on a tour of bus shelters or any of the sidewalks. I agree with Councilmember Brotman that we've allowed our sidewalks to shrink, and that's something that I have not been very happy with. But we have places where we have a bus shelter, and a kid on a scooter has to maneuver through a maze just to make his way through about the 10 feet of sidewalk. So it's not like, we should not, we need to figure out what is it that we're prioritizing, and having individuals waiting in the hot sun for long periods of time, having bus stops without shelters for me is, or in the rain, is important enough, where if we've done it before, we should be able to do it again. And I saw some of these. I like some of them. I like the single pole ones, but you're saying that that's expensive. I don't know if there's a less expensive way of doing it. And if there is, can we do it? Does it have to be as large of a pole as that is? I don't know. I don't know how much research, if we just looked at California or for other places with some rainier weather, maybe Seattle has some interesting concepts, or, I would like us to dig into this more, but it looks like everyone on the council is supportive of it, but I think we need to scour and search a little bit more for the ideal solution. I thought the moving shade was interesting. It's unique, but it doesn't provide protection from the rain. Those are my thoughts. And we have a caller, so.
Yes, Mayor Pro Tem, we do. Ms. Valentine, you have 3 minutes. Go ahead.
Thank you. Good evening, and nice to see Mr. Yamrani. I believe that was him. Mr. Zern, he was very concerned, late Mr. Zern, he was very concerned about the ADA requirements, because he knew it would cost a lot of money if it wasn't ADA. This is not a program. It shouldn't be an amenity. It's a requirement. And that's how I'm just calling to let you know, if you're making any kind of ADA, you need to read it and do it the way that they prescribe. Also, I will be writing a letter about the 2500 block of Chevy Chase. I hurt my knee. I cannot walk down the street. ADA, I'm going to have to call them. All sidewalks are cut 15 degrees. They're not level. And I've seen even animals, coyotes, when they walk, they trip because the sidewalks are not level. You have allowed homes to be built, and the sidewalks need to be restored to be level. I'm sure they can figure it out. Anyway, yes, the buses must comply with ADA. Thank you. Bye.
Mayor Pro Tem, I do not have any more callers.
All right, and we will not take any more callers on this item. Is there any other comments from my colleagues? I think that you've heard a lot of thoughts and opinions from us, but is there any, are you walking away from this with some clear direction as to what we want, or what further direction would you require from us?
I think just allowing us to do the survey and then to really, we've looked at a number of bus shelters. I mean, we actually went out to the bus manufacturer, shelter manufacturer to come up with that one. But we're interested to see the development in the city of Los Angeles, to see, what's available there, how they renegotiated their advertising contracts. So those are things that we're looking at, as well as scouring all different kinds of shade structures and shelter structures. So.
Okay. What action is required from us on this item?
There is a motion, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, at 8:51.
Who would like to
I'll move.
introduce?
You said.
I'm as chair. I'll defer to you. It won't
Okay,
matter
I'll
to me.
move the item, which I won't read, but it's the survey, and you'll be coming back to us then with more information.
Okay. Second.
What's that?
Moved by
I will
Council.
move it or you move
Oh,
it?
okay, I'll second. If you moved it, I'll second, whatever.
You moved it, Councilmember
Okay.
Agajanian
Yes, second.
seconded.
Executive
Let us have a roll
decision.
call.
Councilmember Agajanian,
Yes.
Brotman,
Yes.
Najarian,
Yes.
Mayor Devine, Mayor Pro Tem Kasakian.
Yes. And for anyone listening, obviously, I think that there are folks here from planning as well. I think we've all shared our chagrin with the narrow sidewalks, and I know that continuously comes up, but something to always keep at the forefront of our minds when we're discussing development agreements with developers or anyone who wants to build something in the city. We should reclaim our sidewalks. Finally, we come back to 4D. Again, let's read it once more into the record to refresh our memories and hear the report on that item.
4D would be Public Works regarding slow street program, installation and maintenance. One resolution to dispense with the bidding procedure set forth in Glendale Municipal Code, Section 4.12.010, and authorize the Deputy Director of Finance Purchasing to solicit competitive bids and execute a contract pursuant to the Glendale Municipal Code, Section 4.12.010, for the slow streets program installation and maintenance.
Mayor Pro Tem, members of City Council, last year at the onset of the pandemic and stay-at-home orders, we implemented a temporary slow street program in response to a larger number of folks, residents, using streets for walking and spilling over sidewalks because of the demand for walking amenities. Back in April of this year, we received direction from council to make that program permanent and provided direction as to the steps that staff should take in implementing that program. And I will ask Mr. Pastor Casanova, our principal traffic engineer, to cover those recommendations and get your feedback at the end of the presentation.
All right.
Thank
Please.
you. Mayor Pro Tem, members of the City Council, as Mr. Golanian mentioned, my name is Pastor Casanova, and I'm Principal Traffic Engineer in Public Works Department. Staff received council direction to pursue a program of permanent slow street signs and prioritize the highest need corridors. Public Works staff has prepared an installation and maintenance plan that will install up to 300 permanent type sign assemblies. The plan will also include sign inspections and maintenance, as well as repair and replacement for any damaged sign assemblies. One of the first and foremost challenges Public Works looked at was to identify and choose locations for the proposed signs that would ensure their longevity. One of the interests was to put the sign in a center-placed roadway installation, and that would be shown on the exhibit to the left. And each one of the exhibits on the screen, I'll note, that the circle will identify the proposed location of the sign, and the red rectangular box indicates the width, minimum width of the street, which is somewhat small, so it's also shown at the bottom under each respective exhibit. And in the center placement alternative, staff took a close look at this and recommends to install the center placement road installation signs on streets that are 36 feet or greater. This width of street usually accommodates for parking on each side of the street, a single lane of traffic in each direction, and more importantly, at the intersection, provides more room for turning maneuvers for vehicles and provides more room to ensure that the sign does not get hit. In the other two exhibits, the middle and to the right, it shows the roadside sign placement. The difference between the two is that in the middle one, it will be on a new sign, and on the exhibit to the right, it will be on an existing signpost or a street light. In both cases, these will be installed on streets that would be less than 36 feet wide, which would typically be streets that have more constraint, room for turning maneuvers, slightly less room for parking. And in cases like this, a center-placed installation would likely lead to the signs and devices being hit. Therefore, in streets that are 36 feet or less, Public Works recommends installing those roadside. On the screen, we see two versions of the size of the sign. One is a 20-inch by 30-inch sign, and then a larger 24-inch by 36-inch sign. The smaller sign would be reserved for the locations where they'd be center placed in the middle of the road. And what staff is proposing that we'll see in subsequent slides would be to mount it on a flexible traffic post. In the center place sign, as you can see from the screen, it's slightly smaller than the large one. The larger one providing a 44% larger area. In these cases, it would be roadside. Since it's off to the side, we felt it was important to have a larger sign that's visible to the motoring public. On the screen, you see a sample of what the traffic post looks like. It looks very similar to a traffic delineator that we've seen at construction zones, except in this case, the post itself is made out of a much thicker plastic and is yellow and just much more sturdy. The post itself is mounted onto a very rigid plastic base that would be anchored and epoxied to the pavement. And between the sign post and the base is a anti-twist reactive spring mechanism that's connected by a cable that allows the traffic post to be hit, flex over on its side, and resume back to its normal position without twisting. And that's important because that'll keep the sign in its place facing the motoring public. In this exhibit, we see staff got creative and we put one together to show what it would look like on one of the traffic posts. This is a 20 by 30 inch slow street sign. The sign itself made out of corrugated plastic. Down below the sign would be a reflective band on the traffic post. And below that, the flexible base area where the flexible mechanism is. And at the bottom, the rigid plastic base that will be anchored in epoxy to the pavement. And here's an example with one of our office traffic engineers.
One more.
Yes.
Councilmember Agajani.
How those signs, how it's secured on the floor, on the base. Is that the screw I'm seeing is coming out of it?
Yes, Mayor Pro Tem, members of the City Council, and Councilmember Agajanian. The base itself is a rigid plastic base, so the bolts that you're seeing are actually pretty flush with the surface of the black portion of the base, and that connects the sign post to the rigid base. So this is set up that way. So in the case that over time, even though the post itself is flexible, if it gets hit enough times or damaged to an extent that the post is damaged, it can actually be removed from the base and a new post can be put in without having to remove and damage the pavement. Yes.
Okay.
And lastly, in getting to this, this shows the flexibility of the post in an example. So the next steps, the staff is proposing to use the finance and purchasing process to go out to bid in September, at the end of September. We anticipate bids being received in October, which would allow the contract to be executed by November and implementation in December of 2021. And if there are any questions, I'd be glad to answer them.
Councilmember Brotman.
Yeah, a few questions. Thank you, Pastor, for that. And to Bradley for, well, he's not here, but for kind of kicking this thing off in the early days. So I know the existing A-frame signs have lights on them. A lot of them are broken now, but they had flashing lights and they're reflective. Are we going to have anything like that? Is it going to be reflective, or, I mean, can we put lights on? And I'm thinking especially the ones that are not in the middle of the road. You know, they're not going to be all that visible, really. Some lights might be a good feature.
Yes, well, the Mayor Pro Tem and members of the City Council, Councilmember Brotman, in answer to your question, we can certainly look into those options. Currently, the alternative that we're reviewing and we presented today has a reflective band at the bottom that goes around the whole post. So at night, when it's probably the most significant to see this device in the road, the lights of the vehicles will reflect that. But we can certainly look at options that may be available to add the flashing lights.
Yeah, I think that would be a good idea, especially for the ones that are not in the roadway. The flashing light would bring more attention to that, but maybe in both. Next question is the existing A-frames that are out there. So we're going to collect all those up because they're like debris now. I mean, so many of them are just bashed up.
Yes, Mayor Pro Tem, members of the City Council, Councilmember Brotman, that is correct. Part of the project would be for the contractor to go out and remove those temporary A-frames that, as you mentioned, a lot of them are debris at this point.
Okay, so we'll be picking those up when we install the new ones, basically. Is that the plan?
That is correct.
Okay. And then I saw on the sign, it's the same sign that we used before. It says, "Is this slow street working?" Do we still need that, or are we going to redesign the signs, or you were just thinking we're going to use the exact same look that we had before?
Yes, Mayor Pro Tem, members of the City Council, Councilman Brotman, the plan was to move forward with the signs that we presented today. Nevertheless, we could consider any input from City Council. Because the signs haven't been made yet, so we can definitely take the comments down and look into that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a designer, I don't know, but if maybe you could consider something a little bit new, because people are kind of used to seeing those, and maybe something new will get a little bit more attention. Plus that thing, is this slow street sign working? I mean, that's been out there for a long time. I don't really think you're going to get that many people like calling, and now that it's permanent, it's like, why are we asking if it's working? Like before, it was a temporary thing. We wanted to know how people felt about it. Now, if it's a more permanent thing, it seems less relevant. Anyway, I'll just leave that.
Okay. Yes,
and then my last thing is just in terms of the placement. So you said we have 300 out there now? Is that what you said, or did I make that up?
That is correct. There are 300 signs out there.
Of the A-frames that we originally put out anyway, right?
Yes, Mayor Pro Tem, members of the City Council. Initially, there was 300 signs put up. There is likely a lot less than those left out in the field, but that was the amount that was originally put up.
Okay, and then how many new signs are we expecting to put out?
Mayor Pro Tem, members of the City Council, we are planning to move forward initially with the installation of 300 signs, of which we'll review the locations that were previously installed and coordinate with our community development department, certainly to take other elements into account, including equity in the city.
Yeah, okay, because that was something we talked about in the briefing, and I just want to make that point here that, yeah, I don't think we should just do a one-to-one where there was a sign, we put a new sign, because we know that many of those, I don't know, you probably have the numbers. I mean, the vast majority of those 300 signs ended up in North Glendale because that tends to be where people speak up a little bit louder, you know, and so we do have an equity imbalance, and we do, I think, definitely need them in areas where people don't necessarily come out and tell us they want them, but where there's, you know, more kind of traffic incidents, right? More injuries and near misses or whatever there might be. So you'll look at that, and you'll kind of also consider, I hope, the pedestrian plan and where the pedestrian plan says we have particular problems, and see if there's opportunities to, you know, start to forward some of the goals in the pedestrian plan. I hope. That would be my recommendation.
Mayor Pro Tem, members of the City Council, Public Works will take those comments into account and work with the Community Development Department to put together procedures and practices to assure equity and as well as addressing the citywide pedestrian plan.
Thank you very much.
And we have the other council members, Mr. Councilmember Najarian.
Thank you. I also noticed the graphics on the sign you showed us. I think we need to scrap that and put something a little more vibrant, a little more dramatic, if you will. You know, maybe the black and yellow cross hatches with the chevrons, or I know there's various types of road signs that make it look more eye-catching, if you will. So come up with something that's going to really get the driver's attention. And I guess the question for the city attorney is, can we create a new ordinance that creates a larger fine for anyone that hits one of these? Because that's like hitting a pedestrian, basically. You know, I don't want people thinking it's a game or thinking it's fun to whack these. And if you do whack them, you should be fined, even if it's unintentionally, because, you know, that could be a person or a child right there. Can we do that? Can we like up the ante on damage to city property or something like that?
Councilmember Najarian, that's something we'll have to look at. I mean, if we're preempted, then we would not be able to do that. But if there's additional, if this legislature has left room for us to regulate in that area, then that's something we can look at.
I mean, I don't know if anyone would be interested in that as well, but
Sure.
Because a lot of
we
the
can.
firms got just whacked, you know, to bits, and I think some people thought it was a game. You know, towards the end there, we should let them know that there's a fine for either intentionally or negligently damaging and striking these warning signs. I don't know.
Sure. I
I'm
think
on
that
board.
you do have colleagues willing to second that.
Okay. Other than that, I think by all means, let's do this.
Councilmember Agajanian, did you wish to say any comments? No? All right, well, I do think that the signs also should have the graphics changed, and I hope these will be effective. I do want to see if there's a possibility of perhaps a sign itself having some reflective paint on it, perhaps an outline of the frame, something that to someone driving by at night will immediately catch their eye, versus just this two strips at the bottom. So something that can be done in that regard on the actual sign, because the sign is quite large. I'm hoping that the strip will be sufficient, but I'm somewhat skeptical of that. And I really do hope that it works. I hope that it works.
No, it's just.
Yes,
I
Councilmember
realized
Agajanian.
On page 37 of 402, 4D, page 4D, it's Mr. Imrani, PE, Pastor Casanova, PE, Edward Heady, PE. And then, of course, we have Dr. Garcia, of course, and Rubik Bolanian, PE. It's combination of engineers, providing this report. Thank you.
Let me thank you. Let me go to the calls now. There is one caller on this item. Thank you, council member.
Ms. Valentine, you have 3 minutes. Go ahead.
Yes, thank you. I missed the subject, but I saw something blue on a yellow post. I will never look at that sign. I don't think it's in the DMV book. I still drive. I only pay attention to the valid signs, the yellow, or the like Mr. Najarian said, the chevron signs. To please do not call slow streets and fast streets. You're giving the junkies, the junkie cars, those hoodlums, you're going to let them choose Chevy Chase as the fast street. Number 3, where is the sign about truck routes in Glendale? 16-wheelers driving up and down Chevy Chase over the hill and far away. Then I have a question for Mr. Casanova, Pastor Casanova. Does he have a plan about the surface, the pavement of Chevy Chase? Mr. Zern, bless his heart, rest in peace, late Mr. Zern, he put a slurry. It was wonderful. He used the slurry. He made the street even faster for the bullies to go. Now, can Mr. Pastor throw rock pavement, put a rock slurry over the Chevy Chase on the bottom? I'm not talking about 20 miles. I'm just talking about 2 miles. So that it will discourage them bombarding us. That's all I had. Does he have a plan about not just traffic, the engineers? They need to worry about the roads too. Thank you. I'm sorry. I may be off the rocker. I don't know what the subject is. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Ms. Valentine, for keeping it interesting for us as well. Do you have any answers, or does anyone want to answer? Chevy Chase, I know that has always been a challenge to keep the speeds down of individuals who like to zip down that hill. It can be dangerous, unfortunately. I don't know what can be done in that canyon other than enforcement. I think if you put in bumps, you may have people launched into the air sometimes, but we'll keep an eye on it. If anyone comes up with any ideas, I'm sure our staff will be all ears. So I think that there is some direction, and if anyone wants to make a motion.
Okay, no, you moved it.
I'll move the item.
A second.
All right. Can we have roll call, please?
Councilmember Agajanian?
Yeah.
Brotman?
Yes.
Najarian?
Yes.
Mayor Devine? Mayor Pro Tem Kasakian?
Yes. That brings us to the next item under reports and information. That is 10A.
10A.
Yeah, go ahead, Mr. Clerk.
10A, Local Road Safety Plan Update.
So hopefully maybe some of Ms. Valentine's questions will be answered. And to the audience watching at home and following this, we have had a number of these staff reports with no action associated with them. It's when some of the council members will have requests and we want staff to study something, and they'll provide us with a memorandum and a report, but it's not publicly available. They are bringing these to the public so you are aware as to what staff is working on, what they're doing that you don't necessarily hear about during council meetings. Casanova.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem, members of the City Council, my name is Pastor Casanova. I'm Principal Traffic Engineer in the Department of Public Works. And today I'll be providing a presentation regarding the City of Glendale Local Roadway Safety Plan. In today's outline, we'll cover what exactly is a local roadway safety plan, why we need it, how it was funded, and as well as the different elements, the status, and the next steps of the plan. And there'll be an opportunity at the end for questions. So what is a local roadway safety plan? A local roadway safety plan is a local level, data-driven traffic safety plan targeted at reducing traffic accident fatalities and serious injuries on local public roads. It provides a platform for local agencies and stakeholders to systematically identify and analyze and prioritize roadway safety improvements on local roads. Why a local roadway safety plan? To discuss why and get a better understanding, we start first at a state level. Federal regulation requires all states to have a strategic highway safety plan, or SHSP, and an SHSP is a statewide traffic safety plan intended with similar goals at reducing traffic accident fatalities and serious injuries on all public roads. And including the stakeholders at a state level are federal, state, local, private sector safety stakeholders. And the plan itself, the state plan, includes the 4 E's of traffic safety, which typically include engineering, enforcement, education, and emergency services. A local roadway safety plan is similar goals to the state level, similar goals and elements, except that it targets local traffic safety needs. And one of the important noteworthy elements is that a local roadway safety plan will now become a requirement for local agencies to pursue highway safety improvement program funding. And this requirement will begin in the next grant cycle in approximately April of 2022. Caltrans will be requiring this of all local agencies. So now that we know the what and the why, we'll go over some of the benefits of a local roadway safety plan. It will facilitate partnerships and collaborations for local stakeholders. It'll result in a priority list of improvements and actions, and provide a proactive approach to addressing local safety needs. It also demonstrates a local agency's responsiveness to safety challenges, and will qualify City of Glendale for the next grant funding application next year. And additionally, this can also be the initial steps towards a Vision Zero plan. The funding was provided by a one-time grant opportunity from Caltrans that provided to a handful of cities. And City of Glendale was awarded a grant for $80,000, which includes a 10% local match. And Public Works staff has gone through the selection process of consultants and selected TJKM Transportation Consultants to assist in preparing the plan. On the screen, this is actually a Federal Highway Administration exhibit that provides a simple breakdown of the different elements of a local roadway safety plan. And on this exhibit, on the upper right is the start here in the red circle. And as we meander through the various roadside signs that identify each element, we end up on the lower right-hand portion of the exhibit with the local roadway safety plan. So as we go through our first step, which is now in our, outlined by a red box, is the first sign indicating that we identify stakeholders. So that's one of the critical components, is to identify stakeholders to help us put together the vision, the mission, and the goals of the plan, as well as providing feedback. The next step will be to compiling and analyzing all of the respective collision data, maintenance logs, safety assessments, as well as traffic violation information. And together with the stakeholders and this data, we then work together to get to the next step, which is to identify, prioritize, choose proven solutions to safety challenges that have been identified in the prior steps. And lastly, of course, after choosing the solutions together with the stakeholders and reviewing and prioritizing the safety improvements, we then move to the implementation stage, which will typically include the 4 E's of traffic safety, which are the engineering, enforcement, and moving on to the next steps. So in this slide, we'll go over essentially what the status is as of today of the local roadway safety plan. We've identified, or Public Works has identified together with the consultant team, a list of stakeholders, both internal and external to the city. A local roadway safety plan project website page has been put together, has not been released yet, but it is ready in draft form, as well as flyers that would be posted on city social media for outreach. The staff, as well as a consultant team, has reviewed and compiled all of the collision data, reviewed relevant city plans that will be considered as part of this plan, and have put that information together in a summary format that'll be ready for the next steps, which will include the outreach to the stakeholders based on the list that has been developed, working with them to set the mission, the vision, and the goals, as well as identifying and prioritizing the solutions, and lastly, moving to the implementation stage. Here are listed several internal city stakeholders that will be assisting with setting the mission, vision, mission, and goals. That would include, of course, the mayor and the city council, Transportation and Parking Commission, different departments such as Public Works, Community Development, Police Department, Fire Department, Glendale Water and Power, Community Services and Parks, as well as be open to other departments that may want to provide feedback. External stakeholders that will assist in the vision, mission, and goals will be stakeholders such as the Glendale community as a whole that will be able to provide input on the project website and community meetings, Metro, hospitals, Glendale Unified School District, Glendale Community College, large employers, nonprofit organizations, neighboring jurisdictions, as well as neighborhood and business associations.
May I ask a question?
Yes, Councilmember Brotman.
Yeah, if you could just go back that one. Yeah, I don't see Walk by Glendale on here, and there may be other community organizations that we want to consider. So, but they, in particular, Walk by Glendale seems like an obvious community group that would have an interest in this.
Mayor Pro Tem, members of the City Council, Councilman Brotman, thank you for that input. A Walk by Glendale will fit in under the nonprofit organizations. We trimmed down the list, but they definitely are included. Yes.
Got it, thanks.
And on the screen is the draft project website. This will give an opportunity to the community as a whole to review the project overview, provide an interactive map for the community to review, as well as look at project updates, and more importantly, to provide their feedback. And the following in this screen or slide, and the following two will be examples of social media outreach materials that have been put together. Typically, they'll be included with information for meetings or information about the project, and will typically include a traffic slogan combined with a positive message. And here's an example, as well as another example here. There are several city plans, relevant city plans that will be taken into consideration in developing the local road safety plan. I won't go through each of them, but each of them will be taken into account in their own context. One important element to note is that this local roadway safety plan will be a living document and will be able to be updated in the future as new plans are updated in themselves, should it impact this local roadway safety plan. And on the screen is an example of a summary of a 5-year collision analysis that can be made accessible to stakeholders so they can review the different types and percentages of collisions in the city, provide their input, again, assist with setting the vision, mission, and the goals of the plan, and be able to do that within the context of the safety challenges we may have in the city. And the next steps of the project, we have, as mentioned earlier slides, we have the stakeholder list ready. The next step would involve the actual reaching out to the stakeholders, including setting up stakeholder advisory group meetings, releasing the project website, uploading the city's social media, email notifications to the stakeholder groups, as well as holding community workshops, which could be on a virtual platform, and working with those stakeholders to then review all of the collision data and technical data, and really help develop not only the vision, mission, and the goals, but also select and prioritize proven solutions, which would then lead us to implementing the solutions and implementing them by the means of using engineering, enforcement, education, and emergency services. And that concludes the presentations, and I can open up for questions.
Thank you. Do any of my colleagues have any questions or comments? Well, if there are none, I would like to actually make a couple of suggestions. One of the areas where you will see a lot of dialogue, some of it is just very, next door neighbor, I believe. Is it nextdoor.com? Yeah. And I've seen a few groups organically emerge to talk about this particular topic, about what they feel is going on in their community. So I don't know how or what our city's method is of monitoring all of the next door. I know that our police department has, I believe, access to it, but I don't know if our other staff do. But to look at it and identify some of these pockets, because if it's being discussed, then it must be an issue in that particular area. I know that in the Rancho area that there's a group that's forming to talk about it. I believe in Northwest Glendale, there was a gentleman, Mr. Vartan Jihanian, who had invited me to a couple of coffees at his house. So I don't know if there's a way of collecting all that information. Has it been passed on to staff for this purpose?
Mayor Pro Tem, we know of Mr. Vartan Jihanian, and he has assembled a group of people concerned about traffic safety. And we do have staff in my office that monitor the next door.
Okay. So specifically for this topic, to pass it along, so we're not replicating the work, or I don't want to hear folks saying, well, we didn't hear about it. You know, obviously the discussions are happening on online forums, certainly on all of the Facebook groups that exist out there, from living in Glendale to whatever else. Maybe, I mean, we should just cast as wide a net as possible. One of the things, you know, I know it's just more work for staff, and staff is stretched thin, but more and more people are sitting, you know, behind a keyboard and communicating with neighbors, and we ought to have people who monitor that, because they'll tag us as council members in some of the comments, expecting us to come up with some sort of erudite and authoritative answer, and we don't. We just pass it along either with a screenshot or to staff. So let's make sure that we are plugged into the social media network, and I think that'll provide you with access to a lot of interested stakeholders. So with that, yes, Councilmember Brahman.
Just as you were speaking, it reminded me, another group to put on your list would be Drive Safe Glendale. I'm sure you've heard from them. Hank Schlinger, I think his name is. And there are a number of people in that group that seems pretty active, and they also, from time to time, show up on Nextdoor. So,
are there any other items before we move on to oral communications? Okay, I believe we have. Do we still have the one caller holding? Do we have only one caller, or?
Mayor Pro Tem, I do have two callers, but they're waiting for oral communications.
Yes, let's move on to oral communications. Thank you.
Oral communications, discussion is limited to items not a part of this agenda. Council may question or respond to the speaker, but there will be no debate or decision. The city manager may refer the matter to the appropriate department for investigation and report. Michael Gordon, you're live. You have 5 minutes, Michael. Go ahead.
Yes, hello. My name is Michael Gordon, and I've been a Glendale resident for 18 years. That's how old I am. I'm here to talk about the Grayson gas project and how I think that it would cause a great impact on the environment, and it would be detrimental to Glendale. Not just Glendale, but Burbank, Atwater Village, and Griffith Park. You see, I believe that we should make the next generation even cleaner with renewable energy. And I don't think that the gas plant is the way to do that. Considering that Glendale has already tried to get rid of gas plants by 2045 or even 2035, I believe that the gas plant would not be a great decision to invest. It's a big investment that would be overpriced, and basically no other words can be said, just that it's illogical. I just really would like the next generation to start with the city of Glendale having renewable energy. And I believe that if I could appeal to you, you can have some influence and you can have some say in the decision of your children and their children. Thank you for your time. My name is Michael Gordon, and I appreciate you having me on today.
Next caller.
John Charles Meyer, you're live. You have 5 minutes. Go ahead, John.
Hi, my name is John Charles Meyer. My wife Jennifer and I have been Glendale residents for 5 years. I'm here tonight to voice our opposition to the proposed expansion of Grayson Power Plant. I wouldn't think that my city council members would want their legacies to be. Hello?
Yes, go ahead, John. We're listening.
Oh, sorry. That sounded like somebody's cutting in. I wouldn't think that my city council members would want their legacies to be the rusting shell of a shuttered industrial facility that was forced to close down decades before its technology and construction would otherwise allow it to operate. One argument for expansion that I feel like I'm hearing that appears to be that the city could avoid occasional brownouts. A 2012 study out of the University of Albany demonstrated increased risks of hospitalization for asthma, acute respiratory infection, and chronic obstructive pulmonary disease in zip codes containing fuel-fired power plants. Google tells me that 22,781 people live in the 91201 zip code where Grayson sits. I'm pretty sure that 22,781 people would trade a few inconvenient brownouts every year for a decreased risk of hospitalization for asthma, acute respiratory infection, and chronic obstructive pulmonary disease. I know that I personally would do anything in my power to reduce the risk of hospitalizations for my children. My 2-year-old son's outdoor preschool is 1.6 miles from Grayson. He spends 20 hours a week running around outside at a school with no walls and thus no air filters. 1.6 miles from Grayson. Next year, his little sister will join him. I wouldn't think that my city council members would want their legacies to be higher hospital bills and worse health outcomes for local residents or preschoolers. I fully understand that money often talks louder than the health concerns of 22,781 local residents. But that's where I'm really confused, because it seems to me that this project is likely to be a money loser for the city and its residents as well. Why is Glendale planning to build a gas plant larger than the city needs in order to provide energy for other municipalities in case of emergencies? Who invests hundreds of millions of dollars into a piece of infrastructure expecting it to be profitable with the knowledge that it will be obsolete and illegal in 20 years? That's crazy to me. I really wouldn't think that my city council members would want their legacies to be municipal debt. If we're going to spend hundreds of millions of dollars on energy, let's put it where the future is clearly and unequivocally pointing us: renewables. I, for one, have a 10K solar array on my house and would be more than happy to contribute battery power from it to a virtual power plant. I'd love for my city to be part of the solution rather than part of the problem, and I hope that my representatives in city council will do the right thing and vote that way. Thank you very much for hearing me.
Miss Valentine, you have 5 minutes. Go ahead. Miss Valentine? Miss Valentine, can you hear me? Joanne Hedge, you have 5 minutes. Go ahead.
Okay, should I turn my TV set down?
Yes, please.
Okay, so I'm speaking. Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. My name is Joanne Hedge. I'm the founder of the Glendale Rancho Neighborhood Association and a member of the GEC, the Glendale Environmental Coalition. Please, I just want you to note that the Riverside Rancho's proximity, a mile upriver and upwind from Grayson, and our continued concerns regarding any weakening in the original City Council approved GEC-inspired direction to Glendale Water and Power regarding the plan's integrity on gas dependency reduction, truly green reengineering, and the growing climate threat. We're also concerned about demolition and construction impacts. Our lives, especially so close to the plant, depend on a wise and healthy future for our families, our children, the elderly, area workers, and recreation. And there's a heightened concern for property values and quality of life in this historic park-like equestrian community. So we're watching this very closely in human terms, and hope that you will keep that in mind and not forget about it. Thank you so much.
Ms. Valentine, you have 5 minutes. Ms. Valentine, can you hear me? Ms. Valentine, can you hear me?
All right, Mr. Clerk, I think we've given Ms. Valentine enough of an opportunity. There is no other business before this council. I want to thank my colleagues and staff for a productive day of meetings and issues discussed. And seeing as there is no other items, I'd like to ask for one of my colleagues to move to adjourn the meeting in memory of Arthur Charles Devine.
I move to adjourn in the memory of Arthur Devine.
Second.
This meeting stands adjourned. Thank you and good night.